Cyberpunk 2077 has had no shortage of strange ideas. Some of these were pretty solid and they stuck, however some of them didn't. There's this one feature that genuinely felt different from anything else in the game, the Braindance. It is by far the most unique and interesting system that CDPR has put into this game. Essentially a way to step inside someone else's memories, move through their senses and piece together events from the inside. But its implementation raises a few questions. Today we're going to look into the Braindance, how it works, why it was so promising. I want to see where it went wrong and how it could have been implemented better. Is this just a case of cool concept but bad implementation? What actually is a Braindance? It's essentially a full sensory recording, not just audio or video. It captures what someone saw, heard, felt, and even the emotions running through them at the same time. In Night City, these are essentially entertainment. People watch extreme experiences such as crimes, intimate moments, or anything else that can be recorded and sold. There's an entire industry built around creating and distributing these. For V, however, the Braindance becomes something a bit more practical. It becomes a tool for investigation. When you enter one of these sequences, the game essentially changes. You're placed inside a recorded memory. You can scrub forward and backward through time. You can also switch between the different sensory layers, including of course the visual, audio and thermal. You can isolate specific sounds, enhance details, and of course you can freely move around inside the memory. The goal in using these is to essentially find information the original person either missed or never actually focused on. A quiet conversation in the background, a reflection somewhere, or a heat signature. You could find a small detail hidden in the environment. It turns into a space you can explore and examine. When the game uses it, the sequences feel distinct from anything else in the game. You're not just being told what happened, you're actually standing in the moment and having to pull the truth out yourself. Why was this so innovative? Most games handle investigation through things such as notes, audio logs, or environmental details. But these Braindances went a little bit further. It let you actually inhabit the evidence. You could freeze a moment, rewind it, change your angle. You could also of course study it in ways the original person never could. It allowed for a rare mix of storytelling and gameplay that felt personal and immersive. The potential with this was huge. You could have had investigations that played out across multiple recordings, conflicting memories from different people. You could explore the emotional weight from experiencing someone else's fear or desperation firsthand. You could have had a system that rewarded careful observation instead of just following markers. It had the foundations of a fantastic signature mechanic, something that genuinely could have set Cyberpunk apart in a lasting way. The concept was strong, but the problem was the execution and how the game actually ended up using it. By the way, if you're enjoying this video, then check out my playlist with the other Cyberpunk videos I've made, and don't forget to leave a sub. First of all, it absolutely kills pacing. Cyberpunk is built around fast movement, gunfights and constant momentum. Braindance sequences stop all of that cold. You're then forced into long unskippable sections of slow movement and dialogue while the game makes you scrub for a recording. The shift from high energy gameplay to these slow methodical moments feels jarring every time. Secondly, of course, there's also no real challenge. You're not actually doing the detective work, you're just scrubbing through a timeline and look for bright glowing highlights the game has already marked for you. Once you know what the glowing indicators mean, the sequences become a simple process of moving the scrubber until something lights up. That sense of discovery with this disappears. And of course, they are absolutely painful on replay. The first time you experience a Braindance, the storytelling can actually be really cool. It is a really interesting concept, but when you get to a second or third playthrough, they turn into an annoying chore. You're stuck performing the same basic actions with no new choices or shortcuts. What felt novel the first time essentially starts to feel a bit like filler. On top of that, the game barely uses the system after the early hours. Once the novelty wears off, the whole concept is essentially left behind. There's no escalation, no more complex investigations, there's no attempts to make the mechanic grow with the player. So while the idea was excellent, the way it was implemented turned it into a pacing hit. It just turned into a low challenge activity and a replay annoyance. But what are some ways that this could have been implemented better? Of course, I don't think these should be removed, it just needs slightly better design. Here's some suggestions which I think are pretty solid. First of all, I think a good way to do this is make the sequences shorter and more focused. You can have the memory play out, but the actual scrubbing bit should be kept shorter and a bit more focused. Instead of long, forced, slow sections, keep them tight and purposeful so they don't completely break the game's momentum. You could of course also remove the glowing highlights as the primary guide. People would find this a lot more satisfying if they could actually search for these things themselves. However, I could also see if they did it this way, then some people would just get lost with it. And I know quite a few people don't actually like having to go into a wiki to figure out how to do this one mechanic. This could be allowed by giving clearer audio cues, having more logic to the environment, or have some sort of optional hints instead of painting the answers in bright lights. In this way, they could reward observation rather than following markers. It would add meaningful variation on replay. You could also allow people to skip these brain dances entirely once the game is recognised that you're already on your second playthrough. Or instead offer some way of faster scrubbing and also show already revealed clues on subsequent runs. Or better yet, how about they introduce small branching details or extra layers that only appear on later playthroughs. This would allow to escalate the complexity. Start simple, then introduce corrupted recordings, conflicted memories from multiple people, or time-sensitive elements that force harder decisions. This would make replaying this feature a lot more fun. They could have allowed the brain dances as they went on to feel like a step up, and not actually a repeat of the same tools. I also think they missed the opportunity to integrate it more naturally into the world, actually let players find optional brain dances in the open world. You can find these as items, but of course you can't actually go into them. What's the point? Some of these are used for side stories. It would be cool to have ones, for example, on character development, world building, instead of just scripted main and side jobs. With these changes, I think Braindance could have remained a highlight instead of becoming something players often wanted to get through as quickly as possible. But overall, the Braindance is still one of the most distinctive ideas in Cyberpunk. The core concept of stepping inside the memory and examining it from within is honestly an excellent idea. But good ideas need strong implementation and consistent use. In the end, Braindance suffered from slow pacing, low challenge, weak replay value, and overall just a lack of meaningful development across the game. It was introduced with promise, shown off a few times, and then left entirely behind. What could have genuinely been a cool signature system became another example of Cyberpunk's unfinished potential. A great idea that never got the design support it truly needed to work.